Can you hear me, mate?
You, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's my life.
Perfect.
All I ever do is ask people if they can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can. That is by far the quickest this has ever worked for me. You'd think after 3 years of Zoom, you would have figured it out by now, but
And you've got a mic as well. I
yeah.
love people with the mics.
Well, I am arguably a professional musician, so you'd hope I'd have something.
It's good, man. What's happening today?
Not much. Let me just get rid of my video of myself so I don't stare at it.
Yeah.
Cool. No, nothing. Just took my little nephew to the park and had breakfast with him, which was very fun. And now, yeah, just chilling out.
Unreal. Love those. So, hey, before we even start talking music, is there congratulations in order? Are you about to
Yeah,
become are you about to be a dad?
I am. Yeah.
Oh,
A month from now. Yeah.
holy shit, man. How are you
Yeah.
feeling?
I feel really. So my dog's gonna wander in now. I feel really excited. I feel nervous and anxious about everything I do in my life except this for some reason. And
Really?
this just feels right. Yeah. I really can't wait.
There's conversations with my wife and I about sort of obviously having a child, but we're
Yeah.
not there just yet. But I can't even imagine what it feels like.
No. Well, we got engaged and then a week later found out we were pregnant. So, well, I'm actually getting married. I'm gonna watch Collingwood hopefully win the grand final on Saturday, and then I'm getting married the weekend after, and potentially going into labor the weekend after that. So I've
Holy
got a fair bit
shit.
coming up.
That's a hectic month ahead for you.
Yeah, I know, I know.
That's unreal. Where you getting married?
Just this place in Melbourne called the Alta Electric. It's
Yeah.
like a sort of Elvis Vegas kind of themed, sort of cool chapel-y kind of place. It'll be really fun. Really, really fun.
Nice. I got married 3 weeks ago.
Oh, no way. Congratulations.
Yeah, that was awesome. It's funny. You hear all these cliches all the time. Hey, they're like, "Oh, make sure you take it all in." The day goes so quick.
Yeah.
Uh, totally true. And
Yeah.
it is. It's one of those things. Like, I don't know. You look at your wedding list and you see all these names that are coming, and you're like, um, apart from a gig, this is the
Yes.
best
Yeah.
guest list. The best guest list I could ever have. It's just amazing
Yeah.
having you look out and you see all those people that you love, and it truly is the best day.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't wait. I can't wait. Um, yeah, it's sort of like, yeah, because we had like a week of talking about weddings and then yeah, found out we were pregnant and it kind of got pushed to the side a little bit. So it's almost been like a month ago we just sort of thought like, oh, let's just get married and have our
Yeah,
families there. And
nice.
that's very quick grown and grown and grown to now it's going to be sort of 80-ish people and just like, by the time we've both got big families and, big friendship groups and stuff. So
Yeah,
by the time we'd said, oh, if he's coming, I want her to come too. And then it's like, oh, fuck, we've got
I
150
know.
people or whatever
It
on
just
this list.
starts growing and
Yeah,
growing, doesn't
yeah,
it?
yeah. Which is
Oh,
so nice. Like, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, big month coming up for me.
Do you know what you're having?
Yeah, we're having a girl.
Unreal.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of my mates that have had girls change them all in the best way
Yeah,
ever.
yeah.
They sort of freak out, like, "Oh, I probably know what to do with a boy, but a girl."
Well, strangely, my soon to be wife Tess was a bit like rattled by having a girl. Well, I was just like, I really was happy with a healthy baby. You know what I mean? But she, for whatever reason, was a bit rattled by it, and now not in a negative way or anything, but now we're totally embracing it. And both her two of her sisters have kids, and my sister has kids, and they're all boys. So for the grandparents, it's the first girl grandparent. So we've got like just out of shot here is like a leaning tower of boxes of clothes from my mum and stuff. Like we've got
Nice.
our daughter's got more clothes than like both me and my partner combined, kind of thing already. Just like I think mum's Instagram algorithm has
Yeah.
clued on pretty quick that anything cute and girly for a little kid she's going to buy. So every time I see her, there's another box of things and stuff like that. But just like little 1-year-old girls' clothes are like painfully cute. So
Yeah.
I'm totally with her. Like I get it. Yeah.
Tiny, tiny clothes, man. You've been requested to by a few people that have listened to this podcast to sort of, "Where's Will? Where's Will?" That
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I was like, and then eventually I went, "Where is Will?"
Yeah.
And I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you're able to jump on. I remember. Let's rewind back. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
might have been 2012, 2011. I'm driving around. I was actually driving around in a radio car because I was giving out the free shit. And
Sure.
you're not allowed to do this when you're in the car, but I flicked to Triple J just to have a little,
Whoa, whoa.
But yeah, I was driving in between gigs and I was like, I'll just flick over, and I heard this song Young Drunk,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh wow, this is different, and I hadn't really heard of the band and I hadn't heard this song, and sort of have just kept tabs on you guys ever since, and so have my friends, and you know, what after that song was released, what sort of changed for you guys?
A lot. Yeah. Yeah. That was like, we organized a tour before that song came out. And then, uh, like we were playing on like floors and, like really kind of small shows. And then all of a sudden, like it went from 50 people to a couple of hundred at those shows. And we were pretty freaked out by it. Like none of us were really expecting that, you know what I mean? But, yeah, it was, yeah, that like I sort of can't believe how many doors just that one song has kind of opened for us. And
Mm,
even after we first released it, that was like the first time we've ever had really any like attention. And I sat down to write the next record and just wrote like Young Drunk 2, Young Drunk 3, Young Drunk 4.
right.
I just tried to like rewrite that song and wound up writing and basically scrapping an entire album because it just didn't sound, it sounded like I was just trying to rewrite the one thing that people had liked thus far, kind of thing.
Right.
So it definitely took a bit of kind of getting used to. But I still remember that just because there's a bit in the chorus of that song where I still like back away from the mic and the crowd sings it, and like
Mm.
doing that for the first, I've got goosebumps on my arms just thinking about it. Like doing that for the first time and doing it a few weeks ago for the thousandth time. It's still a moment that I just feel like fucking honored that people are
Yeah,
still like singing that back at me. You know what I mean? It's, yeah, I feel so lucky.
because there was a Will that was writing songs long ago, and no one was singing back, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it gives you goosebumps. You must think about those times. Maybe you're in a bedroom plugging away at songs. And look, it may not be the thing that you were after when you started writing songs. Oh, I want everyone to sing my songs back to me. But incredible that it ends up happening. And then you look at something like when you guys played Splendor in the Grass and stuff, and the crowd is just enormous, and they're all singing back those words to you. Like, you must just, when you do stand back and let them sing, you must think, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, it's still like, yeah, you can probably see my face light up over the Zoom call. Like
Yeah.
it's still just doesn't. It's a bit like I remember that maybe the last time we were in New York and I was talking to a friend who lived there and we were driving on the Queens Expressway or whatever it is, like past the city. And I said to him, I was like, "You've lived here your whole life. Do you ever get sick of that?" He's like, "No, no, it's New York.
Mm.
Like you never get sick of New York." And I feel the same way about those crowd moments where it's like we've we've played thousands of shows and that happens at most of them, and still every time there's part of me that's like, are they going to do it? Yes, they're going to do it. And it like it feels so good and so like gratifying, and yeah, like yeah, it's a really sort of privileged position that we get to be in, that I feel like people, when they sort of get into the band a bit more, they do like kind of connect with us in a way that feels quite sort of personal and quite sort of, it just feels really special. And I really feel that reflected when they're singing back at me.
That song, and like many of your songs, all of your songs, I could almost say, very sincere, very honest. When you write so honestly, are there songs that you've got still sitting that you're probably too scared to release?
Yeah, yeah, a bit. Like I write a ton. And at the moment, I feel like I go through waves where I'm writing lots and not writing. But at the moment, I'm like filling notebooks, and it feels really good. But
Nice.
a lot of the time, I feel like I'll be writing something and just feel like this is just for me. Like this is almost never. There's never really the intention of showing it to anyone else because that's not the purpose of it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like the purpose of this is like, oh, this is obviously something that's weighing on my mind or nagging in the back of my mind or whatever it is, and I've got to sit down and put it onto paper, and then that's it going to be done. And then sometimes I write something and just think, oh my god, I can't wait to play this with
Yeah.
people, and hopefully they learn the words to it. You know what I mean? But mainly, it's mainly like an unreleased hip hop project that I'll never show to anyone because it's just so embarrassing.
Really?
But yeah.
That's cool. I never picked that.
No, I'm a big hip hop fan, and it's not for any like, it's not offensive or it may be offensive to your ears, but um, I yeah, I love writing rap music and even listening to beats and just like almost freestyling into my phone over them and stuff, and that is purely just like, oh my god, if someone ever finds hard drive of my hip hop records, I'll be very, very embarrassed.
Definitely after hearing you speak just then, I get the sense that you'd still be doing this even if there was no one in the crowd.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I started writing when I was a little kid, and I'll do it forever. It's a very important part of my, I don't know, it's very important for like my mental health and my mental well-being. And it's just, I'm sure there are other songwriters that you've had on the show or spoken to in general, where it's just like, it's just part of who you are. Like if you're out to dinner and someone says something clever, you pull your phone out and
Yeah.
write it down and go, I'll be having that. Like, you know what I mean? You kind of, it's just an automatic thought. It's not even a thing you feel like you need to sit down and do. It's just like, it's part of sort of how you exist in the world, you know?
100%. You are speaking my language. It's like sort of like get up in the morning, have breakfast, have lunch. If a thought comes, like you have to put this in the songwriting or the recording or the guitar playing. It has to fit in your schedule. And some people don't get it. Some people are like,
No.
oh, why you got to run off and play the guitar? It's like it's who I
It's
am.
hit me. Yeah. I'm having the thing. I can't think about anything else. And I'm sure people feel the same way about running or whatever. Like, I'm sure there are things like that where it's just like, when I get the urge, I have to go and do it. But yeah, for people like us, it's writing songs.
It's therapy, isn't it?
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You've always been very open about your mental health, and it's been for quite some time too. You've sort of, if
Yeah.
there's been a camera in your face or someone's been interviewing you, you've been talking about it. Um and I want to thank you for that, because there are a lot of people that just say in a position of yours where, an audience is keen to hear what you've got to say, that you um, address these issues and you talk about these things. Is that something that you've always wanted to do? It makes you feel better talking about these things publicly?
I guess so. I mean, it almost feels a bit automatic for me as well, the same as the writing. But it's just, again, like, I probably started writing songs when I was 12 and started seeing a psychologist when I was 12. Like, it's always been something that I've been aware I needed help with and I've struggled with, and I've had, different diagnoses and stuff as I've grown older. But I don't, I find it natural. Like, I think I'm very lucky with how I've been raised and my friends and stuff growing up, that like, we were never sort of people who hid our feelings, and never people who, like, blokey, don't talk about like that kind of sort of macho attitude was just never one that I was ever really around, I guess. So to me, I've just always, and also I get as much out of it as I think anyone else does, because it's almost like it's laying the table for who I am, or setting the table for who I am a little bit. That's like, if I can get that out in the open, and we almost have this agreement that like, I'm not the world's most stable human being, like, I find that that's just kind of helpful as I go through life almost. But I do like, I try and make an effort to talk to people after shows as when my brain and my schedule allow it. And so much of the time it is people coming up and talking to me about that. And yeah, it's like, yeah, it's the same as the singing along thing. Like, it's such a privilege that you're this, and like, people always come up and give you too much credit. I feel like, I'm a tiny little voice. I might be something that someone listened to while they were actually doing the work on trying to sort of, going to therapy or whatever it is. Like, yeah, it just feels like I'm rambling, but yeah, I just feel very lucky that I am in the position that I can hopefully say, if every time I do an interview, there's one person out there that goes, that I say something and it clicks with them, that's my job done, and I read interviews when I was younger, and I feel the same way just talking to people in general when people like come up and want a photo or whatever. Like, I remember being that person and going up to people, and I remember how much it meant when they were nice to me.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's really easy. Like, you just, people come up and they're nervous, and you give them a hug or shake their hand and have a photo with them and chat to them for a minute and smile, and just, you just have to be present and be nice, and it means so much to people.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like, it's just, you have to do that, and it feels good for you. Is like, people often say like, oh, I'll go outside after a show and chat for an hour to people, and people say like, oh, you're given so much time. It's like, no, I've stood here and been like complimented for an hour. Like, this rocks. Like, no one's coming up and like So the last record, I was like, people just come up and say nice stuff. Like it's great. It's fun.
You always sort of remember, don't you? Like those moments as a child when you sort of somehow got the guts to go up to one of your favorite singers or whatever and just go, hey, and then they look back and they stare at you and they say hello back and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my
Oh,
God.
fuck, you're real. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were a real person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not just like a voice in my head. Like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Hey, the last obviously couple of years of the pandemic and stuff, and taking everyone off stage. And I don't want this to be the pandemic
No,
podcast,
that's
but
okay.
it's one of those things where, like, it always sort of gets brought up. Uh, how did you maneuver through that? All of a sudden, someone comes, taps you on the shoulder, and says, "Hey, mate, everything's out the window for who knows how long."
Yeah.
Good luck with it all. I'll see you on the other side. How did how did you get through that?
Well, we were on tour when it happened. We had a couple of weeks left of a run we were doing. And I felt really lucky. I was living, we own sort of a property with a recording studio
Yes.
out like a couple of hours out of Melbourne, where I was living up until about a year ago. And I was out there for the whole pandemic. So I had the studio, I had space, I had the forest to walk in. And leading up to that, we kind of been on tour for, excuse me, the better part of 10 years. So
Mm.
it kind of came at quite a good time for me because I sort of got to rest and recuperate a little bit. And like, that's obviously very selfish, but yeah, I really felt like that time I was really, really lucky. Like I wasn't in an apartment in the city and feeling trapped. And like, I still
Mm.
had the beautiful natural world to walk in and I wouldn't see a soul. And I could still write and I could still sort of be creative. And I, watched a lot of movies and like, yeah, it definitely got long. Like, it was a good couple of months and
Yep.
then it was like, okay, I'm ready to
Yeah. Time
go
to
and
do.
get back
Yeah.
on stage. Like, yeah, that definitely, and it's still, I think it's like, we're back to as normal as we'll be now. But those first sort of few shows back always were like pretty strange. And you sort of,
Mm.
it's hard to know was sort of like, is this irresponsible to be encouraging people to be here, or like, do people really need, like, there
Yeah.
was a lot to
The
kind of
fine
weigh
line.
up.
Where
And
where are we?
yeah,
Yeah. Are we
like
doing
we
the
did
wrong
some,
thing, the right thing?
I know, and like we did some seated shows, and at the end of the seated shows, people would kind of naturally, like when we played like a song of ours called Death to the Lads, people would kind of naturally stand up. And I was always in two minds during it where I was like, do I say, come down the front and join us? Or like, is that going to mean 100 of you all get COVID? Like, it
Yeah.
was,
Will I get arrested?
yeah, yeah. Is this going to be like a super spreader event? Like, you sort of, yeah, it was a lot of like not quite sure what to do. And just, then going back to those first standing shows, it felt like people just weren't used to being in crowded rooms. Like,
Yeah.
you sort of got the feeling from like, even you just felt this energy from the crowd where you felt like everyone was a little bit like, oh, I know it's okay, but I don't want to bump shoulders with someone right
Yeah.
now because I haven't for 18 months. Like, yeah, it sort of was a strange kind of getting back to normal kind of period. But I think now we're sort of as back to normal as will probably be. You know what I mean? Like, it is probably going to leave some
Yeah.
lingering scars on everyone. But I really feel for like kids, like I've got a lot of cousins who are sort of in their late teens, early 20s. And so many of them were like their 18th, 19th, and 20th
The
birthdays
big
were
ones. Yeah.
COVID. And it's like those are the years where you learn who you are and you learn how to go out and you learn how to drink and you learn not that,
No, that's right. I was about
they're
to
so
say that.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a friend of mine who manages a venue said that they kicked more people out in like the month after opening after COVID than in the like
Yeah.
few years
Because people can't
beforehand.
handle their alcohol. The young
No one
ones.
knew how to drink.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And no one knew
That's
how,
interesting.
no one knew how to be in those enclosed spaces, So I really feel for people like that, where it's like, oh, your first 2 years of uni, where you're supposed to be like going out every night and hooking up with people and getting your heart broken and falling in love and like
Yeah.
going to shows and doing whatever. Like they were just kind of stuck inside. So I feel for those people a lot.
I was at a gig on Saturday and I saw the circle pit open up and everyone smashing into each other. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, we're back.
Yeah. I thought the same thing. I went to see JPEG Mafia on Monday night at Forum and I was like, oh my God, I'm the oldest fucking person here. It was me and one other guy in like sensible shoes standing up the back, having a Diet Coke.
Oh, that's
But
good.
yeah, all the kids were jumping around and moshing and circle pitting
Yeah.
and stuff. And I was just like, okay, like they're gonna be all right.
They're going to be fine. Hey,
Yeah.
this studio. Oi, I've got to do this. This is selfishly. I need
Yeah.
to know. I need to know everything about this studio in the wilderness. I remember seeing a video of when you guys are sort of putting it together and stuff. Like, take me back to when you came up with the idea. Like, you've basically, for those listening, yeah, it's a studio you guys built in
Yeah.
the middle of a forest.
Yeah.
And you've recorded a few of your records there.
Yeah. The
How
last
long you
two
had it?
albums we've done there.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 or 5 years now. Another thing COVID's done is completely fucked my sense of time.
Right. Yeah.
Like I have no
Could
idea
could
how
be
long
20
ago.
years.
Yeah. At some point in the 2000s, we bought this studio. But yeah, we're sort of out near Daylesford for people in Victoria, so
Right.
about an hour and a half out of Melbourne.
And you built it from scratch, right? Was
Yeah,
it
I shouldn't say we. I'm very much the like work experience kid lifting heavy stuff. Like
yeah.
our drummer Matt and bass player Fitzy both have a bit more sort of some expertise in that area, and we had some. Fitzy's dad was a builder. We've had some like help from people, but essentially, it's a big property out in the middle of nowhere. It's completely off grid, so solar panels,
Nice.
tank water, and just gas tanks. And yeah, it was just an old motorbike shed that we extended out and soundproofed and baffled and all this stuff, and then built sort of a control room and a big live room and an amp isolation room and a vocal booth for me. And yeah, we've made 2 albums there and recorded a bunch of other stuff there. And yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing place.
So is it on a friend of a friend's property, or did you just buy this place, or
Yeah, no, we bought it was like a cheap property because it's in the middle of nowhere and off grid. So we originally were looking at maybe getting like a warehouse space or something in Melbourne. Like our last 2 albums we'd recorded in houses. One was a studio with a house with a sort of studio in it, and the one before was just a holiday house that we rented and set up a studio in ourselves. So we sort of had a bit of experience doing that. And the idea of living where you're recording just was really important for us. Like it just felt like the place we recorded our album, More Scared of You Than You Are of Me, which was in this beach house in this near San Francisco. And it was like amazing experience and like incredible. Like we would never spend that. We recorded, it was more expensive to make that record than to build our own fucking studio. But it was like, well, you only get to do that once. Like it was such an amazing experience. But just being out somewhere isolated, living where you're recording, it just meant that you eat and sleep and breathe the thing you're working on. And you wake up in the morning, and if you have an idea over breakfast, within 5 minutes you can do it. And we have a bonfire every night at the studio. And if you have an idea at midnight, you can go in and record it. Like it just meant that you can always be, I don't know, you're always there. You're always thinking about what you're doing. And yeah, it's a really, really special place, and we'll keep using it for a while. And originally our idea was to set it up as a studio and rent it out to other people or make other bands' records there and stuff. And then as soon as we had all of our stuff in there, mic'd up and ready, we were like, I don't want anyone else coming in here. Like this is this feels like our permanent kind of home, you know. So everyone's got their little corner of the room, and I've got my little booth, and it's just like, you know, we've got our own art on the wall, and we've got our own. It's just like.
Do you get out there much these days?
Yeah. We rehearse out there.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's a house in the middle of nowhere. It kind of the roof partially caved in because of a tree hitting it. So yeah, we're kind of out there a fair bit fixing stuff up and stuff. But yeah, we're sort of learning a bit about plastering and all these things that we'd probably not doing an incredibly good job of. But I'm purely there sweeping up and, you know, getting food and stuff. Like I'm not that handy.
It's so awesome, and I encourage anyone listening to go and have a look at it. Some of the photos, it's just so inspiring, and it's like, you know, it's every muso's dream. I think what you got there.
100%, yeah, and like, yeah, living there during COVID particularly just felt like, yeah, I couldn't have picked a better place to be stuck for a few months. You know what I mean? Yeah, and maybe eventually we'll have other bands out to record there, but maybe you've got to use our, you know, exact cymbals and snares and my vocal mic and stuff because none of us want to unplug anything.
Yeah, of course. Once it's set up, I can leave it.
I know. Yeah. But yeah, we're so lucky. It's a really, really special place.
Life After Football was your last year's release, right? And how's that been received with geez, the time's flying. I'm sitting here thinking a couple of months ago.
Could be a year old now, actually. Yeah.
But with COVID years, maybe 5.
Yeah, exactly.
How has that been received? Obviously, you toured just a couple of months ago. You did the regions instead of the cities, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we've done both throughout this year. Like when the album came out, we did a capital city tour, and then we try and sort of do a big regional run at least like once a year if we can. Particularly now, it feels like maybe during COVID, all those regional areas grew and grew and grew, and
Yeah.
um, there's big like between Sydney and Brisbane, say there's 5 or 6 shows there that it didn't feel like there were shows there a few years ago. So particularly, because we're basically only like we're going to go back to Europe next year, but we're kind of only really touring in Australia, and you need more shows than Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide, and Perth. Like so, yeah, we try and get up to Northern Territory and play Darwin and Alice, and yeah, try and get all the way up the East Coast and go up to North Queensland and stuff. Like yeah.
How do the crowds compare? Let's put the city folk against the regional folk.
I love the regional folk because it feels like, particularly in like Melbourne and Sydney, and like this is not, I love playing in Melbourne and Sydney
Yeah.
too, but it feels like when you get to places where you haven't been before, or you haven't been that recently, there's people are really appreciative of you making the effort to come there.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like there's an extra level of like, what are you guys doing in Gosford? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Which is awesome. Like, and then we, a lot of those shows are on the coast and like those beautiful drives, and we swim a lot and that kind of stuff. So I like doing that. But then it might just be recency bias because that's a tour we just finished, and I love play. I love playing. I'll play anywhere.
I live just up the road from Gosford, not too
Oh,
far.
where are
So,
you?
I'm in Carryong, up on the hill, which is like
Okay,
five to
sure.
10 minute drive from there. I spent a few years in Sydney, but I'm back here on the coast
Yeah,
now. But I remember hearing about the Gosford show and how
yeah.
good it was. I think it was
Well,
midweek.
yeah, it was like a Wednesday night at
Yeah,
Drifters Wharf. Is that what
Drifters
it's called?
Wharf.
Yeah, and like what a fucking amazing venue.
Yeah,
Like,
right there on the water.
yeah, yeah, and like even that was like we didn't really know what to expect, and then that was a like an awesome big crowd and this awesome venue, and they fed us and got us drunk, and it was like, yeah, we'll come back here once or twice a year. This is perfect. Like one of the biggest shows we played recently was in Newcastle for like the closing down of
The Cambo.
the Cambo, yeah, and like that felt like playing it felt like playing Laneway or something in Melbourne. Like there,
Mm.
there are people in all these places that want music, you know what I mean? And I think thanks to things like Triple J, like they want you to come and if things are like promoted properly and stuff, and it
Yeah.
feels like there is this extra level of enthusiasm there. Like I encourage any bands and artists to go and do it. Like don't limit yourself to just the capital cities. Like Australia is a big place, and even if the shows aren't great, like how good's like go up to Cairns and the show
Yeah.
might be a dud, but you're in
But
fucking
you're in
Cairns. Like
fucking
go to the Great
Cairns.
Barrier Reef. Like
Absolutely. I was talking to Mark Gable, Choir Boys, Run to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Paradise. And he was telling me about back in the day, Newcastle, Cambridge, right? He would say, if you could play at the Cambridge and survive, and no one threw anything at you, and everyone had a great time, you could fucking play anywhere in the world. That's how tough it used to be at the Cambo.
That's not hugely surprising. Like, yeah. We've had some tough shows in Newcastle, but also it's one of my favorite places to play. Like
Yeah, but when you guys played at the Cambo, it went off.
Oh, like I'm gonna miss that pub a lot. That was such a fun place to play. Annoyingly, like the night we played the last night of that like 3-day festival thing they did, or maybe the middle night, and it was like a big outdoor stage. So it was like all of our last time going to the Cambo, and none of us set foot in the Cambo because we were on the other stage. So that felt a bit like, oh fuck, I should have actually gone into the Cambo and had a beer rather than like. But they put us all up in this hotel opposite, so it was like a lot of
Nice.
Yeah, the whole ground floor of the hotel was all the band's dressing rooms, and we had a bunch of other friends playing that day and stuff. So that it was a very fun night. But we all woke up the next morning like, did you go to the Cambo? It's like, no, I didn't. Did you go? It's like, no, I didn't. Like, should we go by and see if a cleaner will let us in just so we can...
shut.
Yeah. One last walk on the sticky carpet.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I'm gonna miss the sticky carpet immensely.
Yeah.
Hey, I see you always like, you're doing Smith Street, but you're also you do a lot of acoustic stuff.
Yeah.
You're keeping yourself really busy.
I try to. I'm on paternity leave now, so I've got a bit of time off.
Nice.
Yeah, we try to. I love doing it. Like I would play every night of the no, anyone who's ever met me would be rolling their eyes at that comment. Like, you're a sook, you want to do 2 shows, then rest your voice. But I would play every other night of the week if I could.
Yeah, yeah.
I love it. I love playing solo too. Like they're smaller, and I really, particularly solo shows, I make an effort to, as soon as I'm done, like jump off the stage, and anyone that wants a photo or wants to chat can come up and say g'day, and I can play some new stuff and different stuff, and I can be a bit more kind of spontaneous and talk a bit more, a bit like, yeah, I love doing solo stuff. I'm going to do a bunch of my solo stuff over summer. Is
Nice.
my plan. Yeah.
Because if we rewind 100 COVID years, it used to be Will Wagner and the Smith Street Band,
A
right?
very long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band.
They are right. There
Nod.
we go.
But we only really did like one or two tours like that, and it pretty quick just felt silly. Like it didn't feel like me in a backing band. It felt like all of us together, you know. So yeah,
Yeah.
we got rid of that pretty quick.
You got one more gig to go this year. It's in December.
Yeah.
It's an old favorite. Tell me all
The
about this
Corner.
gig at the court. How many times you played there? 13 or something?
Something like that. Yeah, we haven't played there for a few years, but yeah, we do a Christmas show every year in Melbourne somewhere, and yeah, this year we lucked out and got the Corner. So I just live up the road, so it's going to be good for
Unreal.
me. It'll be stumbling distance.
You'll
But yeah,
you'll have
there you
to
go.
you'll probably have to rush home after that show to the daughter.
Yeah. Well, that she'll be about 6 or 7 weeks old then, so
Wow.
she might come down to sound check with some baby earmuffs and stuff on, and see how she goes.
Very cute. Very cute. So that's October 21. And what about new music, Smith Street? Or are we all, we're just down the lane at the moment of you becoming a dad and we worry about Smith Street songs later? Is that what's happening?
Well, as we record this, we're about a month off our due date. So I'm writing a ton at the moment to try and get as much written before we've got a little bubba here.
Yeah.
And then yeah, the plan, we've got a headline to March and April next year, and then hopefully we're in the midst of organizing a trip to Europe after that. And then yeah, the plan is to try and record sometime next year. Yeah, I'm writing more at the moment than I feel like I ever have. So I feel really excited about this next thing we're going to record. It might just be a little while down the way, and it might get kidified between now and then. It might wind up sounding like the Wiggles or something between now.
I'd love to hear a version of the Smith Street songs in the Wiggles format.
Well, two, 3/5 or something of us parents now, or impending parents. So it does feel like we're going to have to start doing matinee kids shows. But yeah, I don't know what Young Drunk would become if we were playing it for kids or something. Milk Drunk maybe, but
that would be unreal. Will, thanks so much for jumping on the Street Press podcast. Next time I speak to you, you're going to be a dad, you're going to be married. You could even be playing at the Corner Hotel if I can get all the way down to Melbourne to watch it.
yeah, come down.
But we've had a great chat. Thank you so much for jumping on and opening up about your mental health and all that sort of stuff. It's very important. But it was a pleasure having a chat with you today.
My pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me.